pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay. We'll move on to item number 2, review of the agenda. Trustees, have you had a chance to take a look at the agenda? Was there anything that you wanted to change or comment on? Excellent. We'll move right along to general public comment. Is there any public comment in person? Is there any online public comment? Well, we'll move on then to new business item for action, approval of the committee recommendation of A&E and SMA as the Helena High School architect.
Okay, Kasaf, just housekeeping. Remember, we switch back and forth. Obviously, Al's doing the video. The mics are hot, so when you do talk, go ahead and push on blue. Otherwise, sometimes we just run off the mic off the Al. But today, these are hot. We are SMA and approval for professional services. I will have Todd move through this and make the recommendation. Mr. Barrell, you ready? Okay, let's do that.
Good afternoon, Todd Verrill, Facilities Director. I respectfully request the Board of Trustees award the Helena High addition and renovation project to A&E plus SMA Design. 7 design firms responded to the request for qualification for architectural and engineering services. A committee of 7 members reviewed the submissions on the 14th of October and selected 3 firms, shortlisted 3 firms for interviews. We conducted interviews on the 21st of October, and A&E plus SMA Design is the firm that we are recommending for this project. We are confident that A&E plus SMA Design will serve the district well as the architects of the new Helena High. We have a long history of working with SMA, and now they've brought on their partner, A&E. And there's a couple of representatives here today. Obviously, Mr. Shane Swandell, our owner's construction representative, is here to answer any questions you might have. And then we have representatives from SMA here as well. If you have any questions of them, you will see the bid, or it's not a bid, the tabulation worksheet attached here on how the scoring went for the 3 firms. We had A&E plus SMA, we had Dowling / Mosaic. Dowling, and then Cushing Terrell / Mosaic were the 3 firms that we shortlisted, and you can see the scoring on that in front of you. Does anybody have any questions about the process we went through or any other thing associated with this request?
I think I'll jump in there, Mr. Barrell. Thanks for the recommendation. I would let the board know and our public know that one of the benefits of having Shane Swandell or Holting with us as the owner's rep, he brings a vast amount of knowledge around the processes, and in no exception to this is as we went through the screening and in the interviews and the rubrics to shortlist and then ultimately make a recommendation. Shane's process was spot on. It was very well organized. It was professional and fair and transparent, and we really appreciate having Shane's expertise. He's done this now and will do this, I'll remind you, another 5 times or more here in the district, because this was one of several. But his expertise over the last 20 years working with the state, working with legal counsel to making sure the process is fair and transparent. And so I want to thank Shane for his knowledge and bringing that to the table, in which Todd and I and the district would have had, we would have had to build our own. And this was just a vast of information that really helped the district move and streamline the process. So we're thankful for the way that Shane and his team put this together. And we look forward to the next 5, because we've got this Capital Kessler, then we're going back on the GCCMs for Helena High, Capital, and Kessler. So there's at least 5 more of this process.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any additional questions for me or Shane or SMA?
Thank you. I've had a few questions from members of the public regarding how the architects plan to include public comment as they develop their designs. I was curious if maybe SMA could speak to their.
Yeah,
plan for
definitely.
that.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, as he's moving up, I'll answer that, then Tim can come up and flesh it out a little better. It is the district's directive and or priority to make sure that we have voices around the table. So this is not just wonder if they're going to. This is not that. They will. And we will have voices around the table from our community, from our staff, and from our students. And that's, it's an alignment of where they were when they interviewed. They talked about it. It's a priority for the district. And so you can talk a little bit more about the processes. I might also add, it's a good time to plug it in that on our Bonds and Brews tours, we also today kicked off a Brews and Blueprints. And so every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30, we will, Callie Chamber and I will start, and those will come out further, but we got our first one. That will be the 5th of November, 5:30, 6:30 Brothers. And we'll just talk about, continue to talk about and be communicative around what's happened with our projects, where we're at, and what's going to take place in the future. So we'll continue that on. Tim?
Hello, I'm Tim Meldrum with SMA Architecture and Design. And yes, it is interesting how when you add brews to that kind of meeting, how maybe more widely it becomes
We're
attended.
going to look for other venues too.
But it is a great opportunity for folks to come out in a pretty informal fashion to understand what's going on, check in, and then the regularity of that will allow people to just keep up. And so Carly Smith in our office is she's our marketing director. And she, as part of our team, she is leading the charge with regard to that sort of community outreach piece. And it's really common, especially on publicly funded projects, for us to actually have a certain cadence of community outreach, and in several ways. Some of it will be more publicized meetings where we'll do presentations on status of where we're at. Some of it might even include community representatives that are part of a committee or a stakeholder group that is designed to really give key feedback along the way, and we try to keep those consistent. We'll also include students in that part of it. It's key to get their involvement, and we'll work with Brian, Principal Kessler, on that. And we have a whole schedule all laid out that we will be, we've actually already shared with the district as part of our process, our interview process, but we will share it with the district as part of a sort of a more of a public notice of, exact dates may change along the scheduling, but the idea is that we strategically look at all the right times during the design process to get what part of the community involved and in what way. We'll partner with the city, the county, with the valley, and so we'll try to make sure that we cover all aspects of the district in that communication process. It actually should be pretty fun for a lot of it. Some of it's going to be challenging and wanting to make sure that we get everything included that we want to. But what's nice is we'll make sure to explain to the community as we go all that needs to be satisfied, including budget and time frame and all of those things. So the beauty of it, I always like to say the renaissance of it, is that we have to check all the boxes, not just the want box. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Would the process include an opportunity for practitioners like administrators, paras, potentially teachers, to look at like the final product and identify any pitfalls in terms of functionality, that sort of
Yeah, in fact, I would even say that look will, and like I said, we'll work with Brian on like who were the best representatives of that, and maybe and typically at some point they'll all get to see it, but sort of the ability to change or the cost effectiveness of change is obviously more ideal the earlier on we are, right? So they'll have an opportunity earlier on to give feedback in a way that could actually manifest change or correction or whatever the request or thought is, but it'll be fully vetted, right? So whatever idea they have, what's key for that kind of feedback, because it is probably some of the best feedback, honestly, what's key is that person needs to realize that we're trying to design this for the next 100 years or 50 years of delivering education, and a lot of which we don't know. Nobody does, but we have to kind of design it with a flexibility in mind that can adapt to the future. And that's actually both fun and challenging, but it's important that they walk away knowing that they may not get exactly what they were saying or thinking, but it's excellent feedback that'll add to that sort of comprehensive final design. The later on in the design process, when the lines are darker, they're written in pen a little bit more, and there's a lot of coordination that comes along with bigger change. We've got to change electrical, mechanical, AV systems, like, all of that. Those are going to be harder changes. Doesn't mean it can't be made, but a lot of times it'll be the whole stakeholder committee will say, this one is worth making. We missed this one or something. So some great idea happened that we feel like we can afford and it makes sense to do so, then we'll do it. But it won't be something that will just change on a dime unless it's earlier on maybe or something.
I think the key of that also lies in early understanding and input, that if people are seeing products later in the process and then we discover they're not working, it's a lot harder to change. And so that's the scope of our work, is to get that done early and making sure that the people that are working in those buildings have an opportunity to go see other sites that have similar or desirable traits that we want to bring and incorporate back into our projects. So we get them earlier than later.
Additionally, there are team members that we have that we worked with even during the master planning process, that they have collectively designed in their firm on a national level 200 plus high schools, even fairly recently in the last, say, a couple decades. So it's not just a collection of really old data, but even the two that are involved specifically have done 20 plus high schools in the last 15 years. To, just those two individuals, they've done 35 high schools that are over 120,000 square feet. And those are numbers that are really hard to find in a couple of individuals, because it's important that we bring that to the table to say, like to Rex's point, we need to make sure that everybody making those decisions is seeing what's trending, what's typical, what to avoid, what have we learned, what do we want to actually try to capitalize or invest in the future that maybe isn't being done a lot of yet, and what are the risks in decision making around that. So we want to make sure that this is the right thing for the community, so the right people need to be at the table.
Any other questions?
I'm feeling some excitement building in me just listening to you talk. It's contagious, which is wonderful. This is just a follow-up to Jenny's question, which is in terms of timeline. So here we are now. When do we expect this planning process and the design process to be wrapping up?
Wrapping up? You said?
Typically, that's not the question we get. It's like,
yeah, I was thinking of starting. Yeah, it's not where I thought it was going.
I'm asking like what is the overall time frame?
You bet. Yeah. So to clarify, though, starting next week. Yeah, very soon. And I would argue that it's already started, but it's more formally starting next week. But I'll say wrap up is a really broad term, only because of how fast this needs to go. We need to make sure that we're doing this in such a way that we're able to get like site and foundation, dirt moving, forms, concrete forms in for foundation earlier than we're even done designing the building, which is a fairly common process when it's a little bit fast tracked. We work with contractors. This is a huge advantage when you're hiring a general construction manager or general contractor construction manager on board, which is, like Rex said, coming, right? By the end of the year, we should have that partner on board as well, so we can make decisions with that group and plan in a way with our civil and structural engineers, getting to a point where we can start to move dirt, get permits, and really start constructing while we're still doing a lot of interior detailing and a lot of the exterior finishing systems, but we're not making big moves to the building shape anymore. And so by next summer, say mid to late next summer, that site will start to see dirt moving. And so that is one part of the wrap up, I guess. And then in the coming months, probably in the next 5 months, then all design will start to wrap up and it'll only be construction. There is an overlap of construction will be happening while there's still design or more detailing and constructability part of the design, right? A lot of it is, the word design can be kind of looked at in a few different ways, but you have to start with the big pieces. And then the more detailed you get, the less bigger moves you're making. We're making final decisions around mechanical systems, around some of the trim and finish systems, things that aren't meaningful to moving a whole lot of the building around. Those will be the later decisions. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll hop in now. So my first question is, since we will be voting, what will be our continued involvement in the process
As a board.
as a trustee?
It's typical for us to actually follow that guidance. We actually will want to do it periodically, probably even monthly, but it might just be a brief update. And some of that would maybe come through the owner's rep or through Rex and Todd. But we will typically want to participate on a pretty regular basis. One, for the community, so they can hear sort of the formality of what's going on. Obviously, then so you can more formally see and hear what's going on. There, it's likely that trustees will have representation in some of those stakeholder groups, and that way they can also share in that reporting back to the whole board of trustees. But more regular than not, for sure. We don't want that to be detached. I think that's as critical as just community involvement, as you are community members.
And then as far as the stakeholder groups, I think there are obvious people who will be participating in those. Are we going to have on a regular basis or part of the more formalized group community members, or is that just part of our outreach and then receiving feedback that way?
Great question. No, it's actually a little bit of both. So on a larger scale, it'll be a little bit more of like keeping them informed. Earlier on, we're going to look for feedback and comments and kind of hopes and fears and those kind of things from all community members that want to share those things. And they'll hear us talk about these are great thoughts, these are great ideas, and we'll consider them. And I think that's a big part of, they need to understand the entire process, but we do want to hear from them. There's also going to be ways to share a lot of that stuff through digital media, website, those kind of, like, whether it's, very selective social media or something, but we want to make sure that we can, and those will be a little bit more curated, like surveys and those kinds of things where people can provide their thoughts around what they're seeing or what they're wondering about. But yeah, I think that the sort of the communication along the way, community members, there should be select members that are part of stakeholders that are involved from start to finish. They should be involved in the ribbon cutting when it's open, because they will have kind of more of a true ownership process along the way. And that's really not for us to select. That should be something that is developed through the whole, group, the committee, the sort of the key stakeholder group among the district, to select who should be involved in that best represents the community thought.
Trustee Armstrong?
Trustee Cletus and I were on this committee, and you've heard some of the factors that the committee discussed. The experience that they're bringing to the table and 35 high schools of this size fairly recently was important to us. Something that doesn't really get discussed is you heard about, like, we'll still be doing designing plans, but we'll have submitted the foundation plans. There's going to be lots of overlap. So to have the size and the capabilities of the team to get that paperwork done on time, like if the paperwork's not done, then the entire school falls behind. So that was another factor we looked at. SMA was also I think the only team that talked specifically about the mechanics and the ability to access our systems and the ability to change out our systems, which obviously, our boilers and our plumbing and everything is a huge reason why we're here today. So those were all things, but you're kind of hearing that come out now. It's really about, we didn't really look at detailed designs at all. We looked at kind of like shapes and where things would go, but it's really about the ability of the team to get it done on budget, on time. And then they were all great. They were all great interviews, but we've had experience with SMA. We saw what they put on our website and how thorough it was and detailed about the bond stuff. So just all that history goes into evaluating this, but that's kind of, what we were thinking about. It's not flashy, but it's the boring get her done type of stuff. So yeah, they were all great interviews. You have anything to add?
You said it.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Oh, yes, Trustee Heffernan.
This isn't that on. This is not a question. I'm just piggybacking on the community outreach. I think trustees are hearing more than we normally would. You know, this bond in particular is one, I think it's the biggest ask that's passed in Montana. Community is really proud, and they also, I think, have more ownership and maybe some more feelings as to what things should look like. So I think you're making sure that they have ample opportunity, even if they're not part of the stakeholder group, to express what they're thinking. And Superintendent Welts also pointed out a couple of different times that, you know, it was really close. And I have a lot of empathy for people who also were not able to vote for it because they didn't quite have the money, even though they support public schools. So I think we need to think of everyone in our community as we go forward with this and do our best to just make a effort to balance out the needs of our community and know what they're thinking as well. So thank you.
Okay, questions? I had one quick one, and I know that I'm sure that you covered it in the selection process, but given that you're here before the full board, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about how SMA approaches the rebuilding of a school that's been around since 1867. It's a huge part of our history and our built environment and the lives of just generations of Helena families. And as you approach that, just how do you approach it?
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a very, that is actually, I think the way, one of the things that we actually felt was key for our excitement, especially during the interview process, was sort of this, we carry this enlightenment about that heavy of load, meaning just even sort of the opportunity for a community to design and build and fund a high school, and to actually be able to have a community that has architects that have, you know, several firms that are capable of doing something like this, that are in the community. These are 70 to 100-year buildings, meaning that they will last a long time. And our history has shown that it will be another 70 to 100 years. Who knows how long this will last? A lot of it will depend on how it's maintained and how it's funded along the way. But we want to design it for the best success possible moving forward. And so we do feel like it's the frequency at which this opportunity shows up. We need to meet the process with that in mind, and that's a big part of where we want to come from. Odds are we're not going to be able to check every box and satisfy everyone that is going to say, this is how I feel about it, and this is what I think needs to go into it, and I want to favor this more than that. And that's kind of common in our process in any design, whether this heavy or not. But we want to make sure that they understand the reasons why. I think that's a key aspect of, look, we're trying to consider all these things when we make this decision. And so we have to satisfy this many things. I wish we could do that, or I wish we could do this over here. But it's important that everybody understands sort of the decision-making framework at which we have to follow in order to kind of respond to the most responsible design and construction. Without a doubt, we feel like, I even feel like I'm a little bit emotional just talking about it here, because I think having gone through the bond campaign, hearing all of the opinions and feelings that we did, I truly feel like we want to do that as right as possible. I can't get out of my head some of the comments around how do we make sure we don't do this again? You know, and I think that's subjective, right? I mean, is that a 30-year issue, or is that a 100-year issue? I don't want expectations to be outside of what schools really need and require. They need updatability. They don't need something that lasts forever, because that could get extremely expensive, if not impossible, or maybe not affordable. But institutional buildings, whereas 100 years ago, those were built, you know, you look at like state capitol buildings, you look at government buildings, they you know, you go to some other countries and you see buildings that have been there 1,000 years. Those are technically institutional quality buildings at one time. And now we can get to that level of quality, or we can't get to that level of quality without spending a ton of money. Construction technology has sort of allowed for a lot simpler ways to build. But what we need to do is make it adaptable. We need to make it repairable according to the systems that are going in it, right? Mechanical systems should last 30 to 40 years, but we need to make them not buried or encased in concrete in such a way that we can't repair them or replace them. But yet we also can't make them so accessible and elaborate that they take up so much square footage that the construction budget kind of gets blown, and we can't necessarily spend that money on education. It gets really elaborate, all the levers we can turn. But I think that's the beauty of not only architects and how they think and facilitate many, many things, but I think it's also how we engage the community, how we engage all the stakeholders, all the experience that comes to the table, like owners, reps, contractors, subcontractors. We have to capitalize on all of that. And that's sort of a trust exercise, but with that much expertise coming to the table, I hope that people feel comfortable that the best decisions will be made.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions from the board? Hey, obtain a motion for.
Thank you. I feel like I shouldn't be standing up here for the vote.
Did you want to say anything more? I didn't want to.
No,
I don't want to push you off.
thank you for allowing me to speak.
No, thanks for being here. All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the committee recommendation of A&E and SMA as the Helena High School architects.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on the motion? Thank you. Is there any further board comment or questions on the motion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to an item of information. It's kind of a, we have the need to replace a position on our board left by Trustee Rachel Robeson. And our process will be entirely public with public interviews. And the first one is today. And Mr. Welts, if you want to say a little bit more about the process,
I
or
mean,
I can.
Probably, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the process. So it's unique, right? Unfortunately, this is the second time I believe that we've had to replace, and certainly that we understand what's taken place and wish those or past trustee Robeson all the best. But now we're in the process and now moving forward. We had a 60-day window from the time that the board approved the resignation or the step down. And so we're in that timeline now. I will say that Candace and I have had maybe one of the hardest times scheduling our trustees and our candidates all in one place at one time. It has been really difficult. And so we just made the decision the other day, it's not going to happen. And so now we're going to do kind of this flexible scheduling. So here's what we're up to. The applications are due October 31st. So we still can get applicants submitting before our first set. I don't want to say round because it's not multiple rounds of interviews. This is the first set of interviews. And so we'll have 2 today. And I think then we will have 2, we'll have interviews at Jim Darcy on the 28th of this month. And then we'll have another set. And I won't say how many because there still could be more people applying. But then we'll have another round or another set of interviews that takes place on the 7th, November 7th. And not only will we have interviews that day, we also make the decision that day in public meeting. All right. So at this time we have 3 sets of interviews, and as we can get everyone together as best we can, and I know as we get further down into October and early November, some of you will be gone and you'll have to join us through Zoom. That's just the best that we could do. So what Candace and I have done is set up interviews. Most of you can be there. Even our candidates was back and forth. There's a lot happening with our candidates. So we're extremely glad that and happy that we have so many people that are of interest. And so you'll see 2 today and then unknown for the next 2 sets of interviews. Fair enough? That's what we're up to. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's see here. And how we'll do this is, yeah, like Mr. Welch said, we'll ask the questions, and it'll all be in public because this is you would have run in public, so you're going to answer questions in public too. We have two applicants here today, or candidates, and thank you both very, very much for wanting to be involved. There are times when we don't get any. So the fact that we have kind of an embarrassment of riches on candidates is a good thing. So going to start with Erin Gallagher, if she's here. Is it Gallagher or Gallagher? Gallagher. And I'm sorry you have to stand behind a mic the whole time. It's even more awkward.
The most awkward interview I've ever had.
Awkward that you will ever have. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you
of
very much
course.
for being here. Trustees, do you want, I'm happy to.
Yeah, be reminded, right?
I think we're gonna stick to the questions that are on here. I think so that everyone's asked the same question.
Go back to that. Let's do this. So the questions are in front of you. The applicants have also received them this morning. Okay, good. I got a head nod on both of those. So they've seen in this process, it wouldn't be fair to everyone if we gave them no questions given out and then they heard them here and then people in a week and 2 weeks heard them and are able to practice. So we felt like it's really important to have some time for you to be able to see them and think about them before they come. So they're all the same questions. You can follow up with a kind of a clarifying question if something doesn't make sense or you want to hear a little bit more. You can ask a clarifying question, but I will not or do not want to deviate off the questions in which we have before you, right? Because I want every question to go back to the same applicant in the same delivery. So I would suggest that let's do this. Jennifer, you read the question. We don't have to round robin. And there's going to be this time where people are going to be head down writing. That's kind of awkward at times as well. It's just part of the process. But and then you can have the cadence. As soon as you feel like everybody's ready, we can move on.
Okay, that sounds
Fair
good.
enough?
Yep. Good. All right, well, welcome. What motivates you to serve as a school trustee, and why is now the right time for you to take on this role?
You know, I felt very compelled to do this. I have 2 young kids, they're 6 and 8, so I am kind of early on in the schooling process. And you know, I kind of originally thought that I was going to be that parent that just like skates through and, you know, you just take your kids to school and you show up and they do the thing, they learn the stuff and you come home and that's what it is. And I was a Hawthorne parent. And so starting last year, I got knees and elbows deep into the way all of this works in the process and coming to some meetings and learned way more than I thought I ever would know about school boards and how all of it happens. And then doggone it, I started caring the heck of a lot more about all of it. And when I heard about this and I heard about Rachel, I was like, you know, it just feels right. I think that I have a lot that I can offer based on my own personal values and my own strengths, just in terms of what the board potentially needs and what they do. And you know, I think now is the right time because, to be perfectly honest, I don't have to run a campaign. I just get to just apply and see how it goes, right? But I think it's the right time because, like I said, I've gotten a lot more into it over the past year. I've learned a lot more, and it came open, and it just felt right. So yeah, that's what motivates me. And my personal values, you know, I am a person of high integrity. I think that it's important to do the right thing, even when it's not easy. I think that's what the board did with Hawthorne. I think that there's a lot of other decisions that we don't even know yet that might have to be made. And I pride myself on being able to look at all sides of a situation. You know, and I'm that person that like plays out everything. Okay, if we do this, this happens. If I do this, this happens. If I do this, this happens. And what does that mean for me and my family and my own kids? But what does it mean for our community as a whole? I have gotten very concerned with education federally and all the things that are happening. And I feel like whenever I start getting overwhelmed with all of that and whether it's going in the right or what I think is right or wrong direction, when I look locally, I go, okay, this is good. We've got good stuff going on, right? We have schools that are doing the best that they possibly can. We have kids that are thriving. We have some that aren't, and that's important to focus on those kids too, right? And I think that I can do a good job of helping look at the totality of all of it and trying to do what's best for everybody, including those people that, maybe couldn't vote for something when they wanted to, or didn't really even know how it worked, and trying to be a liaison and an advocate for kids, but also for members of the community and representing the community, including the people who maybe have different views than I might, and trying to understand where they're truly coming from. Mhm. So my kids are now at Kessler, so we have the fun experience of going through a new building and things like that. I am a big nerd about design and all of those sorts of things, and so there's a lot of decisions to be made about buildings and design and how to move forward with that sort of stuff imminently. And so I think that I could have a lot to add in helping with the direction of where those things go, with those decisions that are coming up really quickly. In addition to, especially for some of those Hawthorne parents or other parents who feel a lack of trust in the board and in our community and the way we run things, trying to be a liaison and trying to just really hear them and meet them where they're at and say, hey, you've got an ally here, right? Who we all really want what's best for our kids and for our community, and being able to try to help maybe build back some trust from people who maybe feel like it's been lost, by being a good listener to their concerns.
Sorry. Well, we heard you. Great answer.
The most important part.
Question is very hazy. Our board's work is guided by 5 pillars: teaching and learning, facilities, culture, budget, and communication. How would you support and contribute to our efforts in these areas?
So my understanding is that there's committees that are involved with all of these different things, and not everybody's on every committee. I don't know where the needs are for different things or how any of that works. Like a little bit of all of that excites me. I always am that person who had very close relationships with my teachers growing up. I have close relationships with my kids' teachers now. I have friends and family who are current teachers or whose spouses are current teachers. I hear a lot of their concerns. And as a parent, I care a lot about learning and the processes we use for teaching our kids. Because I have one kid that no matter what the teaching style is, she's going to do awesome. And I have another kid that, hard to say if something could be better or not, depending on what those styles are. And there's a lot that goes into that. And so I think that that is fun and exciting, and trying to figure out the best way for the most people, or how we can fine tune so each kid gets the best thing for them specifically. In terms of facilities, like I said, I'm a kind of a big nerd about like the design process and things like that. Obviously with Hawthorne, the facilities were a big part of what's happening right now. That's a big part of looking forward to the future. And yeah, it's hard to say how I would be able to support and contribute to all these, because I'm like, yeah, it just makes sense. It's obvious why everything's important. So I'm just going to try to speak a little bit to all of those. The culture part, I think, is really interesting. I've talked with a lot of previous Hawthorne parents in our new places now, and the things that are different and the things that we miss. And I think a lot of it does kind of come down to culture, the culture at each school and different. And, we're all learning the new things there now. And I do very much enjoy Kessler and their culture. But among teachers too, especially the teachers that I've kept in touch with, and the teachers that were at Hawthorne and that are now at different schools, and hearing just almost like a vibe check of how different it is compared to other places and what they like or don't like about those things. And having worked in a variety of workplaces, I'm that person that says 80% of whether you like a job or not is the people you work with. Just the culture surrounding that area helps determine if you enjoy working there and want to stay there. And I hear so many rumblings from teachers about like, oh, I don't know, like, should I leave? Should I not? Should I stay? Should I go? And like, I think getting to that culture, getting to what speaks to that is how we can get people to want to stay and to care, and we can show them that we care about them. And so I think culture is a huge part of that. Budget, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Like it's a necessary evil to have to deal with money and work within what we have, and trying to maximize that and figure out and problem solve, how do we get out the most from what we have? What are the best ways that we can do that? And I really enjoy that kind of problem solving and figuring out. I'm big into doing research. I'm an Excel nerd. Like I'm going to try to pinpoint and make sure that everything is like as optimized as it can be. Like this is great, but could it be better? Like, I don't know, if we do this way, could it be different in a good way from what we're doing right now? And budget wise, I think that's important to do. And then communication, like I said before, I know just like within rumbles of the community, around the bonds, around Hawthorne, around all these things, it was really interesting to hear people's perceptions of what they even think bonds are, where all this stuff comes from, and just like the misinformation some people have on how everything works. And so communication is at the core of all of that, both with the community, but also with teachers and with parents and with staff and between teachers and parents and staff and all of it. And I think communication is at the core of how we make sure people understand exactly why we're doing what we're doing, and building trust and keeping trust.
All right. In what ways have you contributed to Helena Public Schools in the past?
So like I said, my kids are really young. I'm their first and third grade. So, we're early on in our time in the school system here. I've lived in Helena. My wife was born and raised here. I've lived in Helena for 8 years. It's been slowly but surely getting more and more involved, coming to board meetings last year. I'm on the school leadership team at Kessler this year, talking about, okay, how do we set goals, right? Like, do we want proficiency goals or do we want growth goals? Do we want this or do we want that? So that's been the extent of most of my time with Helena Public Schools so far, just because I'm pretty fresh into it.
What is your understanding of the role and responsibilities of a school trustee?
It really runs the gamut. There's a lot of decision making, there's policies and procedures, right? And voting on all of those kinds of things. There's the mission and vision for the school district, and like, where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we accomplish that? How do we make sure that it's all encompassing? Making sure that we are being transparent with the community. I work in healthcare, and so the dotting of I's and the crossing of T's, both for covering your own butt and for the sake of, it's just the right thing to do, to be thorough, right? And to do it the right way. And so that's kind of my general understanding of what the board does and accomplishes.
Is there anything else you'd like us to know about you? And do you have any questions for us?
Like I said, I think that it's a skill set bringing to the table, just in terms of not being afraid to ask questions or looking at things from a variety of different angles, trying to be thorough so that way everybody feels like they're being heard. And yeah, just my own personal values, I think, are important to know: integrity, honesty, kindness, respect. I feel like I've been told I'm calm. I have a calming presence. I'm patient. I think these are all things that in a public capacity can come in really handy, especially when there are a lot of strong feelings sometimes that fly around. I am also very much a let's find common ground kind of person. We, I think, live in a time where there's a lot of polarization and a lot of strong feelings. But at our core, I think a lot of us all want the same things. And if we can focus on the common ground and focus on the things that are really important to the vast majority of people, it makes it a lot easier to get along and find ways to move forward where we are able to help the most people and do the most good for the most people. I do have a couple of questions. I'm going to get out my little list here. What are the general like hourly commitments, like in terms of month versus week, and what would be expected of me in terms of committees or things like that?
Well, we slept here last night.
I kind of believe you.
It really truly, I'll take a stab at it, but if you guys feel free to jump in if I don't cover all the ground that we cover on a daily basis. I mean, the absolute bare minimum is we have we have 2 board meetings a month. We have a work session, which really is just a regular board meeting, but we have them out in the schools. We do work there, but we do work at this one too. And then we have our quote unquote regular school board meeting, and those are the second and fourth Tuesdays. So Tuesdays are a no-go on evening activities. There are subcommittees, and we try to we don't want to stack up one subcommittee and make it be like a de facto, second or third school board meeting. So there is representation on each of those. They meet once a month. Some of them have they actually are all dealing with the pillars. And then the health benefits subcommittee is a broader committee that has employees on it, and really specializes honestly in health insurance. And I think those meetings are probably longer than a noon meeting, which is what the regular subcommittees are. This is a busy season because we're also doing all these planning committees. Those are all coming before smaller groups, or sometimes the whole board, as you saw today, sometimes smaller groups of people on the board. And then there is just interacting with the public and being that liaison. And that can be as much time as you choose to devote to it. And then there is keeping up on email. You do get a free email account.
Woo!
It
Who
stays
doesn't want more
active.
email?
Don't sleep on that email. So like weekly commitment, I think it really varies. I would say right now for myself is probably 10 hours, maybe more, but everyone has a different experience. That's about in there, but yeah, you jump in.
So it's a minimum of 4 hours if you're doing those 2
Mhm.
board meetings, and then typically all of us are on 2 committees.
Okay.
But then you got to prepare. So, and for me, it was a really, it is a steep learning curve on a lot of this stuff. So however many hours you want to devote to that, and it's so fast paced. And then with the beauty of the school bond passing, I feel like I've been here more than I have not. So everything's meshing together. I mean, it's like I leave like I'm taking time off of work and I'm here like half the day, which is a privilege for a beautiful opportunity. But there's more hours that I think we're devoting because of this great historic moment where these bonds have passed. So it's all blending in. I don't even know what day is what, to be honest right now.
Yeah, we'll just Mr. Armstrong, and then we'll do this. Yeah.
I would, this is really the kind of the question I hope was on this. So I'm super glad you asked this because we are not in a normal time. I would say right now, I'm probably 20 hours a week.
Mhm.
It's all great stuff. I'm learning a lot. It's very educational. And I think the administration does a great job. When we come in and we have zero relevant experience in the area, and yet, with like the construction, the owner's rep, you get prepared and you feel like you can contribute, but it is significant. So that would be my one thing. As you think about being on the board right now, it is a significant time commitment at this point. So it is not our typical schedule. So just make sure that you have the flexibility to do that. It is great. And even if you bring certain strengths, do not expect to always be on a committee that, like, I am the budget chair and I have leadership experience, but I had no budget experience. So you will expand your horizons. And I think the other thing is that when we talk about being a trustee, it's a delicate balance, even though this is a very moderate group of everyone in the room. We don't run the district. Administration runs the district, but we represent the community. So knowing how to, and we do vote on stuff, how to balance that when sometimes the community may want something different than the administration is proposing, understanding why the administration is proposing that path is also really important. But it is a significant time commitment at this point. I pray it's not going to stay at this level, but you just started talking about more committees until construction is done, and that's going to be like 2029 for the stadium. So just know that going in, it's not a typical time.
You'll see the amount of meetings that we're going to have. That should taper off by the end of the year. First, in January, probably, we won't be hiring 5 more professional services come up. That's going to take a lot of your time, but then it should settle back into those normal 2 times a month.
Just so every candidate hearing this doesn't pull their name out of the hat. It is a busy time, but it really depends on your position. If we're having significant budget issues and you're the chair of the budget committee, then you're busy. If you're doing a facilities master plan and you're dealing with a school closure, you're going to be extremely busy. But know that when you start, there's a learning curve just to feel comfortable and know the process and know just how to get through things. And I have full faith in Chair McKee that she will not stack you up to the ultimate end. People get, there's a glide path going in. Usually, not necessarily, maybe a committee chair, but, a leadership position doesn't happen until you have some experience. When you do work your way up to be the chair, it becomes very busy. And we're thankful for all the chairs that we've worked with. It's an honor, but it's also a lot of work if that's your ultimate goal.
Anyone else?
I would maybe, because you all were in it this last year, but legislation sessions, that time of the year as well, that you devote. I saw 8:00 in the morning, I'd see Trustee Armstrong providing testimony for a bill, and 4:30 in the afternoon, Siobhan would be there. And so you guys all have picked your times to do that work as well.
And that is an important point, that it opens the door to other volunteer adjacent activities like testifying, which you testify as yourself, but you are also on the board, or MTSBA, and Trustee Hathorn has been awesome and very involved in the Montana School Boards Association. I think everyone up here has taken on other things that are not necessarily completely in the job description, but the job starts to pull at your heart, and you wouldn't even be here if you didn't care. So it just is like one door opens and another door opens. But it is some boundary setting, but I think it's fair to say that for every trustee who is employed, a silent partner is their employer. And it's probably true of all of us.
And lastly, we have, I would just, as Siobhan's point, we also you have the flexibility, and if you can't make a meeting, that we do Zooms, when people are out or they just can't be here. This board has been really receptive of having their colleagues be in the meeting, may not in person, but real flexible and accepting of that as well.
And the good news is, if we're together, we're a quorum, and that's illegal. So there are no social obligations whatsoever. I never see these people except in this room.
For better or worse.
We like each other. We don't hang out.
So if you're on the board, can you still be involved in like the school leadership team at Kessler or things like that? Like, is that a conflict of interest, or are you still allowed to participate in those school level
See that
activities?
looking over here?
Yeah.
That,
Good one.
I
It
mean,
is.
I ran during COVID and I've dealt with a lot, but I have not actually dealt with that specific question. I
It
can
is.
tell you that I go to the Helena High Parent Council as a Helena High parent, so it's not like you're not chased away from your own child's school, obviously.
Okay.
You want to go? It
You,
is-
you should probably take this, but
Well,
that's a lot stickier because you're actually in a leadership position at that school.
Yeah, it is. It's a conflict of interest in that perspective, because if you think about the staff that you're working around now, there's a leadership perception around where you're at. And so that does change the dynamics. I know that we've had people that want to go and volunteer as trustees, and our legal counsel has advised not to do that. So we'd have to work through what it looks like. You still go as a parent council and just as a parent, but
Right.
if you're going in the official capacity of being on the leadership team, then that's a little different.
Okay.
So it does change.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Our second applicant, Katie Butler. Thank you very much for being here. This will be awkward.
Let's move this down. It's all right. I've been preparing for this mentally for a few weeks.
All right, awesome. Okay, what motivates you to serve as a school trustee, and why is now the right time for you to take on this role?
So I think I know, at least at a cursory level, most of you, but I'll just say for the record, my name is Katie Butler. I'm a public relations professional and also a mom of a 6 and an 8-year-old. So yay, parents of elementary schoolers. My 2 daughters go to Jim Darcy Elementary in the 1st and the 3rd grade. So speaking to motivation and timing, I think this question has a few layers for me. Motivation-wise, I grew up in a very public school-oriented family. My dad served as chair of the school board where I grew up in Oregon, the 2nd largest school district in the state. He was chair through my high school years and obviously involved in lots and lots of committees and work before that. So I think I've long had an ethic for public schools and for public service, and aspired to follow in those footsteps. But of course, for a long time, it was like, well, that will be eventually. That's when I'm older and wiser and have more time and all the things that probably actually never happen, at least when it comes to having more time. And so looking back over even I'll go back the last 4 years, similar to Aaron, obviously I've had kiddos in the school district for the last 4 years and have really enjoyed our experience. We've had an overwhelmingly positive experience at Jim Darcy. It has just been so much fun. But getting more involved in understanding what the day-to-day looks like for kids and for students. And then of course, the most important thing in terms of timing for me is my involvement on the bond the past few months, I guess. And truly, like, for the 4 years that we've been in the district, like, love the communication we get from our principal, from our teachers. Obviously get, Superintendent Weltz's regular Friday updates, but I would not say I had a great sense of how the district makes decisions, what the administration is up to on a day-to-day, event, or the things that are happening at that level. I think it's just hard to access that, especially if you're busy and you have young kids. So the bond was really fun for me, not just because that's the work that I do and because it was such a personal value to get that passed, but to peek under the hood a little bit and to get to know some administrators, to see how thoughtful, everyone is about making decisions, to get to know this group a little bit better, and obviously to have a very vested interest in passing that bond and then stewarding those resources wisely, is sort of the reason why this moment. And actually, I started to have conversations about participation as a trustee even before we passed the bond and before this vacancy was open. And so obviously passing the bond is very exciting and completely changes, the calculation for what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. I think you guys have made some extremely difficult and important decisions over the last several years and have gotten things in such good shape, and the future is really bright. I don't take that for granted at all, and really would look forward to participating as a trustee at this time. Having been one of the people, in addition to Superintendent Welts and others, who probably did the most to communicate about the bond with the community, I feel a sort of personal responsibility for the stewardship of this bond and the resources and the investment, as was already said so well in the earlier part of the meeting, not just for those who voted yes or for those who are a part of the school district because they're a parent or a teacher or a family member, but for all voters, for those who voted yes, for those who voted no, and for those who didn't vote at all. I think the taxpayers are a really important constituency of ours and increasingly important as we steward this bond wisely. So to be a part of that and to think thoughtfully about that is sort of the reason why this moment makes the most sense for me.
Thank you. What do you hope to accomplish as a trustee over the next 9 months?
9 months, yeah. I mean, I think you guys already spoke to it. The learning curve is going to be steep. I don't pretend to be an expert on many of these areas or an educational expert, but obviously I'm jumping in and learning as much as I can about how you guys function, the decisions that you guys make on a day-to-day basis, as well as the bigger picture decisions. And then again, knowing that this is an intense season of making a lot of decisions about how to spend this $250 million, in addition to all the other work you do and figuring out how to balance that, right? I would think hoping to accomplish getting through these initial steps, again, you know, to what Tim was talking about, communicating really well with the public, making sure there's a great understanding of the work that this board is doing, that the district is doing, and, you know, hopefully 9 months from now, really seeing a lot of progress on this exciting new chapter.
Our board is guided by 5 pillars: teaching and learning, facilities, culture, budget, and communication. How would you support and contribute to our efforts in these areas?
Yeah, your comment made me chuckle, Trustee Armstrong, about like being on the budget chair and not being a numbers person, because that's relatable. Yeah, I'm excited about all of this. I mean, teaching and learning is becoming increasingly interesting to me, just interesting to me because I have kids in the district, young kids. I mean, when I think about the next almost 11 years that we're going to spend in this district, I feel like I obviously have a strong vested interest in the decisions that this group makes for my own children's education, as Aaron does as well. Specifically, the ones that I get most excited about are culture and communication. I've spent my entire career communicating with the public and trying to do so in a way that is persuasive and trust building and communicating values, right? I've worked on a lot of campaigns and have done a lot of communication on public policy issues. And so I would really hope that I can bring that experience and expertise to the board. I know I've already had a lot of ideas about all the communication you guys already do and not necessarily how to do it better, but I was chuckling. I was thinking back to like Communication 101 in college and how communication is only effective if it's both given and received. And like, for example, like living out in the Valley, I do think that there's sometimes a felt disconnect between the work that you guys do and the work that the district does and just what actually like gets translated out to the greater public. And so I think you guys do a great job communicating. I'm really excited about Taylor and the work that she's done over the last several months, but how can we make sure that that communication is received and heard and not necessarily heard through a lens of distrust, but a lens of trust? So I've done a lot of thinking about that, and I really hope that I can bring that experience to the board just to even sharpen the work that you guys are already doing. Yeah, and participation in whatever level you guys need participation in these other areas. I think, you know, when I think about the work of a board, which I guess is a question that's coming down, you know, it's the big picture stuff, right? Like you're not in the granular day-to-day work of the buildings or the administration. Like we have extremely talented professionals doing that work, but guiding all of these things under the banner of the goals and values that you guys have set and just making sure that things are done well and, you know, holding accountability in all these areas. So I look forward to learning more and contributing in that way from a strategic standpoint.
You kind of got to it, but what is your understanding of the role and responsibilities of a school trustee?
So I did read the manual, or I read the first section of the manual and skimmed the rest of the manual. But Well, yeah, totally to that point. Obviously, goal setting, I think, is something really important that you guys do alongside Superintendent Welts and the rest of the administration. Financial stewardship, obviously, I think is such an important role of the trustees, and it's great that we have a system where there is a public process to elect you guys, and then you then are the representatives of the people whose taxpayer dollars are getting spent by the district. I think that that's just fabulous. So obviously a really important role that you guys play. Accountability for Superintendent Welts and the rest of the administration, you know, empowering them to achieve the goals that they have set and do so well, and serve as kind of a backup and a backstop when necessary, for them to do that work really well. And yeah, and then obviously the more granular decisions that you guys make at the committee level. But again, you know, district strategy, district goal setting, and then making sure that everything that's done within the walls of the buildings is done in alignment with those things.
Is there anything else you'd like us to know about you, and any questions that you
I
have?
think you skipped one.
What's that? I skipped
Yeah,
one?
that's what I was just
Do you
about
want me to answer it? Yeah.
Oh, geez, Louise.
Number 4.
Okay. And you're going to get to do this so many more times.
I know. Thanks, guys.
Huh.
Totally
Yeah, the
appreciate
backstop,
you.
yeah.
In what ways have you contributed to
Yeah.
Helena Public Schools
Yeah.
in the past?
In the past. So yeah, I mean, I have been within the walls of Jim Darcy for the last 3.5 years, which has just been such a pleasure. You know, volunteering in my own kids' classroom and getting to know that community, which is just such a special community to me. But then, of course, my work on the bond, I think, it's the reason that I'm here today and interested in this, which is probably honestly one of my proudest professional accomplishments to this day. So I would like to think of that as a contribution, and obviously alongside all of you that work so hard out in the community to get this passed.
I'm going to safely move on to question number
Yeah,
6.
I think you got it.
I don't mean to skip to the end. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about you, and do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add that didn't necessarily fall under these questions, and I don't think that anyone should be considered qualified for a trustee position just because of like where they physically live. But I am excited about the opportunity to join the board as someone who lives in the North Valley, who lives north of Lincoln Road. As I have started to talk to more people about me considering this opportunity who are out there, whether they're teachers or staff at Jim Darcy or just my neighbors, I kind of see a little like light come on in their eyes, like, oh, like, I just think that this is an amazing community, but there can sometimes feel like there's different pockets of the community that are better represented than others. And I would love to just be a person who is literally physically present in maybe a different part of the community than the majority of the rest of the board. And I don't think that their interests are necessarily different than anyone else's interests in the community, right? But if they can see themselves in me, I would hope that that would be a really small step towards continuing to build trust with other parts of the community that maybe that doesn't come as naturally to. And I would love to see that for every corner of Helena. But I do appreciate the opportunity to at least stand up here before you guys and be considered as someone who lives outside the city limits and cares really passionately about our school community and our broader community out there, and to be someone that can help, like I said, translate some of this back to sort of the constituencies that I'm around that might be a little bit different and more diverse than the ones that are here. Questions. I mean, Erin asked fabulous questions, and I really appreciate you going over timeline quite a bit more. Because we probably have a little bit of time. One question that just popped up as I was looking through the manual is, how often do you guys convene or use citizens committees, and how, like, what do those usually look like, and what do you use those for, if ever?
If I think I understand what you mean by citizens committee, that's a great question, by the way. They come up sort of around specific events, like the facilities master plan included citizens. The budget consensus committee was a long process, and that included a lot of people who were chosen just from the public. There will be public community members. I'm nearly certain, I'm kind of speaking out of turn, but this is what happened in the last time we built schools, is there were members of the public and especially that school community that were involved in helping to guide at least the values of the community around the design of the building and the features of the building. So they really are fairly specific and they kind of come up as needed. I'm not sure, there isn't a standard standing citizens committee. We do, yeah.
You are,
It's
yeah.
kind of us.
Yeah. No, that was just really interesting to me. I hadn't heard about that very often. So how often you guys use that as a tool? I was curious about.
Parent councils are a kind of, they're a kind of citizens committee.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say one more thing. Professionally, my entire career has largely been in legislative politics and advocacy. So when you're talking about the advocacy that you guys do at the legislature, like I've seen a different side of it where it's more what the legislature is setting when it comes to school funding and those kinds of things. And I'm actually really excited to get on the other side of it and learn what I can about advocating for a single school district or for school districts, obviously statewide at the legislature. And that is something that I have fairly extensive experience with. So would also really look forward to learning more about how you guys engage in that process and hopefully being a value add there.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks to both of you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your
interest.
flexibility too. I know it's been like a lot and I was a part of that. So I appreciate you a lot.
It's all right.
We'll take
Yeah.
it.
It's not new.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Candace is very good at scheduling.
That's great. Yes. We're moving on to board and superintendent comments. Are there any comments from the superintendent or the board? I think we've got one.
I just want to thank both individuals today. I appreciate that I didn't scare you off with my 20 hours per week currently, but I did want you to be fully informed. I find all the time it is challenging, but I also find it very valuable as an individual and as a trustee and as a part of this community. I think that the hardest thing we struggle with as a board is that we're constantly trying to engage the public, and yet it constantly seems to not always reach the public, and that we tend to deal with issues and concerns when we're already like 6 steps into the process, even though we advertised the previous 5 steps. So I really appreciate, we want more engagement from the entire community, because when we do sit down and engage with our community, even if it's on an upset thing, it often turns out to be well received on both sides, and it tends to build bonds, because this really is, I think, a community that values each other. So I just appreciate that you're willing to step up, take on an additional workload, be involved in stuff that can be great and sometimes can be very challenging. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Trustee Heffern.
We've had several comments about Trustee Armstrong being on a committee that she didn't have a lot of experience. I just want to defend my placing her there, and and it's a great example that you can be extremely effective. You do not have to be a specialist in any area. I placed her there because she's tough as nails, and we have our first balanced budget since, or healthy budget since I got on the board 7 years ago. So don't feel like you need to be a teacher or you need to have an educational background or accounting or anything, communication, anything else. Like, we're all here to serve, and you learn and you support, and it sometimes works out ways that you never would think, right? Thank you.
Anything else from anyone else? Yes.
I would also say that we have, I think, a fairly balanced set of experience at this point, which is really helpful. And I've, as the newest trustee, felt very grateful to my colleagues that they can share their expertise with me and that we can intentionally share the load for some of those additional volunteer opportunities. So thank you to all of you.
Anything else? Oh, yes.
I think because we're all wanting to go around and take a little bit of a turn just to add in some additional comments and context. As a trustee who first started serving when my children were 7 and 9, I have lived through not only the elementary experience, but now through high school with my son graduating and being down in MSU for his freshman year. Quite an experience, and I've always appreciated the flexibility of time, especially having the young kids, having to move kids around and be the school bus and still make sure we have time to be here, and sat through numerous meetings that would go until 11 midnight. Lucky enough that I have a partner who supports me very well with all of this. So just to say that it's not impossible, and have greatly appreciated watching my kids grow up and kind of reap the benefits of the experience and all the decisions we've made up here.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd piggyback on that. Like I had a 5th grader who was my 5th grader. The school's closed when I had a 5th grader. So I mean, I was working full time and also partially and rather poorly homeschooling. And it was possible. But it is one of the benefits, and aside from just being involved in your community in a way that is very tangible and very meaningful and important, is that when your kids complain about anything, you have like 20-minute soliloquy just ready to go because you know exactly what they're complaining about. And that has been really helpful. I mean, my kids have loved every minute of it. Yeah, it's great. It's like you've got spies everywhere. All right, guys, I think we're adjourned. Thank you again so much. Oh,
I want to,
you don't even have to be good at chairing to be the chair. You know what I mean?
I do want to thank Katie and Aaron. Thank you both for putting yourself out there. I think it speaks volumes. Remember, there was days in my superintendency that we couldn't get anybody on the board, and now we have people that want to, and I think that's a testament to the work that you have all done. I want to remind you of my role in this process. Right, I'm simply here to answer questions. I have no input to this. So as you go through, you can ask me questions, and through the process of selection or appointment of the new trustee. But I have no ownership or vote in this process. So I'm here for questioning. Fair.
I think we can safely adjourn.